Okay, so we are going to be writing spooky stories. And scary stories have the same elements as other stories. They have characters, problems, and settings. So, in a regular story, usually your character is faced with a challenge to overcome. However, scary stories add additional elements of a creepy setting, scary characters, and a twist or surprising elements at the end. So, what we are going to be doing is we are going to be writing spooky stories. But you will have a little help determining the story elements, and that is where our dice come into play. So, what we are going to be doing is you are going to find your dice, and one should be for setting, one should be for obstacle, one should be for character, and one should be for story starter. So, you're going to roll your dice, and I have my obstacle. Or no, I have my story starter. So, I'm going to roll my story starter dice. Whatever it lands on, I'm going to read it. Behind the door, I heard endless tapping. So then I'm going to copy my story starter right here. Behind the door, I heard endless tapping. And if for some reason you can't make your dice, you can go ahead and pick the ones that you want. So then I'm going to do the same for setting. And if I roll the dice, my setting is in a basement. So my setting is a basement. So remember, these dice are helping you pick the elements of your story. Then my obstacle is going to be the main character is trapped. So the main character is trapped. Then my character is going to be a mummy. So we are mapping our story. So you're following along with me so you know how to do this later. And then it wants you to write your main character, and it wants to know, what does it look like? So I think my character looks bloody and has a broken arm. He acts like he's very hungry and angry. So then my character, this is my main character, and it wants you to pick another character. So my character, my other one, looks like, we'll say, a ghost. And he acts like he's sleepy all the time. Then it wants to know, where does the story take place? So remember, it takes place in a basement. Then it wants to know, when does the story take place? I'm going to say my story takes place at night. Then it wants to know, describe the place. So my place is a basement, so I'm going to describe the place. So I would say it's flooded, it's smelly, it's dark, because those are all describing words, like my basement is flooded, my basement is smelly, and my basement is dark. And you can add as many describing words as you want. Then you're going to get to this page, and it says, the main character will encounter an obstacle or his or her worst fear. How does this happen? So remember, my obstacle is that the main character is trapped. So how did they get trapped? So we'll say that the mummy was walking in the woods and he fell into a hole that was actually an underground house So he ended up in the basement. I'm going to write it right here. In the basement. Then it wants to know the middle of our story. So in our small groups, we've been working with beginning, middle, end. So in the beginning, the main character was walking in the woods and he fell into a hole that was actually an underground house. So he ended up in the basement. Then the main character will try to overcome the obstacle but fail. How will this happen? So he will try to dig a tunnel, but he realizes he has nothing to dig with. Then he tries to use dynamite to blow up the ground or the house, but all the dynamite is wet. The obstacle is overcome at the end. This is where you include a twist. So, what happens is that he gets out of the house. So he climbs out of the hole. But is greeted by a bloody vampire. So now it wants to know some descriptions. So some sounds they might hear, some sights they might see, some smells and tastes that they might taste or smell, and some textures. So we'll say sounds. We'll hear bats chirping. We'll see large animals. And you can write as many sights and sounds and smells and tastes and textures as you want. So we'll do rough, smooth, dirty smells, sour tastes. Then you're going to use your map that you've created to create your story. So you have all your details, and now you need to write your story. So the beginning of your story starter, is behind the door I heard endless tapping. So that is how I'm going to start my story. So I'm going to grab my paper and I'm going to write behind. And remember, good writers make sure that they capitalize their first letter and then they use their finger spaces. So behind the door, I heard endless, and now I'm going to go to the other line, tapping. Then I can just continue to use my map. So behind the door, I heard endless tapping. And then you can make up the story as you go. So you could say that I opened the door and I found my mummy, and just use this to describe your story. So then I could say, behind the door, I heard endless tapping. I went to open the door and I saw a giant bat. Then you would just keep writing, and I will finish this story and I will upload it so you can look at it before you write yours if you need any help. But just remember, use all of these things that we've modeled and put them in your story somehow, some way. And share your story on Seesaw with us, and you can record yourself reading it, or you can just upload your story. Remember, this is required, so you have to do it for your writing. And I'm going to finish my story, and I'm going to upload it for you to look at before you write yours. Good luck, and I can't wait to hear your scary stories.